Okay, today I went to a second Britney rally, and it was there was definitely a lot more people, and it was a bit more interesting because I felt like I learned even more yesterday. Yesterday, I did learn something quite strong, but today I felt like it wasn't so much about me, but I was learning about like the conservatorships and stuff. You know, in England we don't have conservatorships, and I agree that England is correct on that. I don't think really conservatorships should be in place. Um, I think though that there are some people who need help, and I think they do need some sort of carer to manage their finances. Um, and that's all I think it is. I don't think it should be a conservatorship. I think it should be, just a manager appointed. I don't think it should be organized by the courts. I don't think the courts should have kind of any say. I mean, to be honest, courts is a complicated process because a lot of the people dealing with the courts don't really know the circumstances. It's down to the individual, their abilities, their situation. There needs to be a lot of things in place. I know though that there is such thing as people not being able to agree with the doctors and refusing medication and stuff like that, and that's what you have sections for. In England, if a person needs medication and is refusing it, you can section them and say, well, you have to be sectioned until you take this. That's kind of what happened to my sister. um, I think she was refusing to believe that she was ill, so they sectioned her, and yeah, and she didn't pay anything for it because it's all in the health service. I think the health service is very different when it comes to America. On one hand, it needs work. On the other hand, I think there's a lot of people who need it, and in England, I think most people are quite sane, and it seems to like there aren't that many homeless people. There aren't that many people that are mad. But then again, maybe it's because they have the help that they need to get them in place. Whereas there isn't that much help. There's too many people probably that need help in America, maybe, which is would be hard to create a sort of system that England have. Um, so it's a very complicated matter, and it's not really for me to decide. It is down to courts to decide these things. But yeah, I was very impressed with the story of the lady in the wheelchair who had a blue and flowery dress. I had a sign. There was a sign that was very pretty, and I wanted to hold it up earlier, but it was too big, and I didn't want to hold up something too big. I wanted to kind of just like blend into the background. So I most of the signs are smaller, but I wanted to keep with the smaller signs until I really had an idea of what was going on. Because when I first arrived there, I didn't have a clue of what was going on. It looked like there was three different stores, and it looked like three different topics, and so I was kind of like, okay, is this three different groups or whatever? And then they kind of merged together quite quickly, and I saw how similar the cases were. It's kind of about conservatorships, and it was interesting how there was one guy who was kind of against them and didn't believe that he needed it, and I think that was I've actually forgotten what he said. Um, I don't know, but I know that the second one was the one that I was standing next to. I don't know why I stood there, but I felt like I needed to stand there. I had no idea what he was going to say, but he did start talking about how, I think in his case, a conservator was necessary in his view, but he needed to work with a conservator that would help him rather than abuse him. And I think if you put someone in power or someone else, abuse is always the case, and you need to. But so yeah, it's it's a complicated issue. Um, on one hand, I feel like I'm in some sort of conservatorship, not because I need help, but just because I feel like in the future, I guess my destiny was always to be seen as God or famous in some way, and people are going to look back on my life and look at everything that I've done and scrutinize it. And so I guess maybe that's the reason why I've been in a conservatorship, because people are going to look back at things that I've done and things that I've said. And even in that, rally thing, I wanted to just talk and be open, but I was also conscious of the fact maybe I was being spied on, maybe people were assessing everything that I say. Sometimes I say things that are kind of out of context, or I'm kind of blending in, and I'm just trying to say something that I think would a normal human would say. So sometimes I'm not saying necessarily what I believe, but rather what I think I need to say. Just because I would fit in the group. Technically, I don't actually support Britney because I don't know what's going on in her life. I don't know what's fake and what's not. The conservatorship is supposed to have taken billions of pounds away from her, and or millions, or yeah, millions, I think it was. I don't know what the figure was. But yeah, I don't think I don't believe it. I earn 20,000 a year, and or less really. Um, but you know, that's how much I earn, and it's just crazy how someone could think that they could earn £1 million a year just for. I don't even know what they do. I don't understand when it comes to money. I know when it comes to money, I need money because I feel like I am about to be exposed soon, and I need money to hide myself. Um, I don't like taking taxis because I have it ingrained in my head that they're too expensive. At uni, a lot of people used to always complain about how poor they were, and then I would see them getting on a taxi and just spending £7 to go to the shops or something, and it just infuriated me how someone who could complain about money would then go and spend huge amounts of money on taxis and still think they have a right to complain about money. And there's lots of people who use often off benefits and stuff, and they too just throw their money away on taxis and things like that have always really annoyed me. So I don't use taxis just because I don't have any money. If you've got lots of money and you can afford a £7 taxi, great. I'm glad for you, but I'm not in that position, or at least I wasn't 7 years ago. And I had a huge amount of depression because of not being able to get a job, um, and yeah, taxis is something that you do when you have a job and not when you don't. And I think whatever I went through then is probably psychologically scarred me and never made me never want to use a taxi, um, unless it was free. And they were going to some party or some drinks afterwards, and I wasn't sure if I was really welcome there because on one hand, okay, they are Britney supporters and spiritually I am Britney, but on the other hand, it's like I'm not, because I'm not actually Britney. They are supporting Britney and they're not there for me. Spiritually, maybe I don't really know. I can't really say, but I don't think they know. And it's like, and then just as I was about to get into the taxi, she started saying how this one guy was like the missing piece and that you had to be there. And in a way, I felt like she was talking to me, like I was the missing piece and like I needed to be at this mixer. And I'm thinking, oh, that's nice. That's a sign that I should go. I read signs all the time, and I was wanting a sign to go, and thought that was a sign to go. And then we got near the taxi. There was like two guys and her. Um, and then she started screaming out, Anna, I need to get Anna. Anna needs to come on. I promised Anna to get a taxi. Anna, Anna. And it was just so weird how she kept shouting that name. It's just like, I'm Anna, and I'm kind of the missing piece of this whole thing. And then yeah, and then I looked in the taxi and was like, wait, there's three at the back, one at the front. That's four people. If you're getting Anna, then that's going to be four people without me, which is like, okay, so I'm not going to be able to get in the taxi, which is fine because I didn't necessarily want to get in the taxi, but I did say that I don't have internet and that I'd have to go back to the room to get internet. And she didn't really know anything about me. I was living quite a long way from where they were. Um, for me to get internet, I'd have to go all the way back to my hostel, which takes half an hour. And I guess I could just go back there now. But if it started at 5, well, technically they're an hour late. So if it started at 6, by the time I get there, it's not going to be till 7. Everyone was tired during that. There was a lot of people there, and a lot of people were talking about this mixer. But a lot of people were saying how a lot of people didn't seem to know what was going on when they were going or if they were going, and no one mentioned anything about it being £10 to enter, and someone also said you have to buy the ticket online. And I felt like whoever was no one knew who was organizing it. And I'm kind of deciding in my head, I'm talking about it now just because I'm deciding in my head whether I should make an effort to go. And technically I've got a free train pass so I can go there, but I'm just like, is it worth it? I'm actually quite hungry, and and then it also reminded me about that girl being like, I'm going to go into the taxi, and she was like encouraging me into the taxi, and everything seemed like it was all the signs that I was meant to go with her. And then she started screaming out, Anna, 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 get Anna, I need to get Anna. And then it was like, okay, that's more signs. And then, oh, wait, if Anna comes, there's not going to be any space in the taxi. So it was just like a reminder that this is just another sign that I'm completely invisible. Um, and I'm a big fan of Buffy. And, the episode where there's this haunted mask that looks kind of similar to the masks that are downstairs in this hotel. Well, they throw a big party after Buffy gets out of hell, which is where she just came from. She gets out of hell and then she goes back home, and they throw a welcome birthday party. And Giles calls up to warn them about these haunted masks, and they bring people back, the dead back to life. But the person there didn't actually know who Buffy was, and they couldn't hear her name, and they're like, Bunny? Who's Bunny? I don't know. And it was like, this is supposed to be her birthday party, and yet the people at her party don't actually know who Buffy is. And yes, it kind of reminded me of that episode, and I was just like, you know what? I feel like a black sheep in this party because I am not actually Britney, and I don't know, I don't really support her because I feel like all her songs just insult me, um, and make me look like I'm some sort of slut when I'm not. And yeah, I'm not in favor of Britney because ever since I told people that she represents me, she's done some songs that again just insult me, and I'm confused as to what my higher self is doing and what she's doing. I'm also confused as to what her actual mental state is quite like. I'm confused about this conservatorship, if it actually exists or if it's just been set up to um, kind of, I don't know, spook the world out when they'd be like, oh yeah, it's happened to Brittany, and oh, it's happened to Anna too, because I guess I have been in a conservatorship. And yeah, but I can't tell the difference between what man is doing out of choice and what God is doing, and therefore I'm still not convinced that there is a conservatorship, especially considering someone's supposed to be making billions of pounds or millions of pounds out of it. Why should someone be getting that, and why are you going to the courts every few months to discuss this? Courts are expensive. Why did the courts have to decide these things? Surely it's just get them the help, and if they're refusing help, well, there are tons of people that are mad on the streets, and you're refusing to help them, and they don't. Most of them don't want help. I think a lot of them have. I don't know. There was the woman on the bus that was completely insane. That there were people trying to tell her to get help, and she clearly wasn't accepting it. But yeah, so why does she not get put into a conservatorship? Okay, she doesn't have money, and that's. But anyway, it's I don't know. It's really complicated, and I don't want to get into the detail about it because I don't know. I I've just decided though that I'm not going to be joining them, because I've seen where it is, and it is actually near where I was, 2 stops from where I was, so I could go back, but I'm hungry, and I would feel weird being at a party that's kind of all about celebrating Britney's conservatorship ending when in reality my conservatorship hasn't ended. People are still ignoring me. I still feel like I have to be really careful what I say. I am still under the conservatorship, and I can't tell anyone because I don't know how they would react. And at the same time, I'm also the conservator as well at the same time. So that's a whole nother thing. And I feel like there's also a whole nother level to it, which is that humans, in a way, are under some sort of restriction. And there's a voice in people's heads that help guide and control, not control, but I don't know, help them in a certain way. And on a spiritual level, God is a sort of conservator over people, um, and you need to work with God to make your life better and think about others as well. And uh, that was another topic that came into my head during one of the speeches or whatever. I think during that speech where he was going on about working with the conservator, I felt like I was actually thinking of God as being the conservator and humans as being under, not under her control, but under her sort of influence. And you know that's a whole different that's looking at everything from a whole different perspective. Um, and okay, there's some signs that I didn't necessarily like because there were a lot about sex trafficking, and I don't believe that Britney's was sex trafficked or anything, but I did massage and I didn't really want to, but at the same time it was what's best for me because I got to watch a lot of TV and I got to be in the house and um, but yeah, very complicated, and I've said quite a lot of stuff, but anyway.